This is the second issue of Canon, and the best way to describe this is the tagline: the magazine for readers of fine comics. This is a self-published magazine that talks about small press and independent comics. It's published by Colin Blamchette. He is loading the Canon on Instagram and loading the Canon on YouTube. Someone I've gotten to know over the past 3 years, has a credible wealth of knowledge of the independent comics. He's been with independent comics since like the 90s. His collection of comics is amazing. His collection of his original art is amazing. He's just a very knowledgeable, humble guy. I really like him a lot. So this is the second issue. And I usually don't really seek out these kind of magazines. And just kind of like full disclosure, I do have a 3-page article in here. I'm talking about the Color Pop Creamies by Desmond Reed. But the thing with these magazines and these kind of publications is that either A, they try to be like, I don't know, The Economist. If you've ever read it, you'll know what I'm talking about. Or B, they try to be like really DIY, like punk rock. This is in the middle. This is professional presentation. This is professional in the content. And it's a nice physical package, but it doesn't take itself too seriously. Like sometimes the Comics Journal does that. I know they have to present the subject matter and the comics in a serious light, but sometimes you read some articles and it's like, okay, it's like, I think for me, it's a little bit too much. I mean, I've only been reading comics for 40-something years, so maybe I don't know anything. But for me, it is, just personally. So the first interview you have is by Colin with MS Harkness. And I find that when it comes to interviews with comics creators, there's two types. One is people that have never read the subject matter, never read any of the creator's works, don't know anything about it, and they try to just kind of like BS their way through it, shine you on. And the second type is people that have actually read the creator's work or have done research, are familiar with it, and can ask intelligent questions, and which makes a more interesting read. The second one, the latter, is the one that's much more rare, but fortunately this interview, like all the other interviews, are the latter. This is a really great, fun interview, and I think it's smart for comic creators to do these kind of things, because I know a lot of people think, well, the work should speak for itself. True, but it doesn't help. I mean, it doesn't hurt to present yourself like show your personality. I think people resonate to that. Even in the world of social media, and we talk remote and we talk through a video, there's still something about that human connection. Good article. There's this ongoing series, Visions of the Long Box, that does deep dives into obscure dollar bin comics. This is an interview with Haggai Palevsky, and I'm sorry, Mr. Palevsky, if I've mispronounced your first name. He's someone that known for doing reviews for the Comics Journal, Soul Rat, other magazines. And I found this interesting because he had a similar journey that I had, and that he started reading superhero comics after a while, got tired of them, and then started reading independent small press. He took it a step further and started just doing formal written reviews that have been published. Interesting insights, and I was reading this nodding my head a lot, like, yeah, I know what he's talking about. I know what he's talking about. This is an interview with, this is not an interview, but an article about Steve Willis and Clay Geardes, 50th anniversary tribute. Some of these comics that I'm not familiar with, but are interesting to read. This is a article about the comics of Nick Mullins. Nick Mullins is one of these cartoonists that isn't a household word, but if you know of them and know their work, you're like, yeah, I know that guy. This is an interesting interview because this is an interview with Catriona Chapman and Carl Stevens, where Colin is sort of like facilitating it, but he's really not involved. And it's just too interesting to see two cartoonists talk to each other. This is Catriona's work. I'm not familiar with it, but she does all digital. And I'm really impressed that she was able to get this look in digital. So I had to pursue some of her work. A lot of art from Catriona, a lot of art from Carl. Carl is a great artist out of the Boston area. Has a new book, Mother Nature, written by Jamie Lee Curtis. Great artist, great cartoonist, great painter. Just really talented. And This is an article about Epicenter Comics, which I was not familiar with, so I'm looking forward to that. This is an interview that Colin did with Ethan Persoff. Now, Ethan Persoff is someone that I wasn't familiar with, but I've seen some of their work, and it's kind of interesting because he was influenced by Chris Ware. And when he came out with his stuff, he got slammed for it because people said, oh, you're ripping off Chris Ware. But over the years, everybody's ripped off Chris Ware. I mean, not even non-comics areas as far as design and all that. I had a friend of mine on Instagram pointing out that the brochures they show you, those little pamphlets they show you in the planes, like where the emergency exits are, it looks like Chris Ware drew it. So it's like, it's kind of like an interesting story about how he had to deal with that, working with Al Columbia as well early in his career. Just pretty interesting. I want to seek out their work too. And we close the book. I'm sorry, here's my article about Desmond Reed's Colopop Creamies. This book is getting a lot of traction. I've been talking about it for several months. Very unique, interesting book. And I will always promote this book because I think if you really like a book, you got to talk about it. And then to close it, we have an interview that Colin had with Stephen Pelnat, who is known for his series, self-published series, Upstate. This is another interesting article. And again, I read this because I wasn't sure what the series was about. But the more I read about it, I'm like, you know, I gotta get these books. This sounds really interesting. Very unique perspective. You know, kind of a story. I like that. The physical package is great. I like the fact that the print isn't too big, but it's not too small, especially for older eyes. And then you notice that each of these pages has like a little background on the back. Just very light. It actually comes up more obvious on the video than it does when you see it in person. But it just kind of separates it from just being like white sheet of paper. It does something where it just kind of elevates it. And again, it's just really, really nice and well done. I know some stores have it. I know Gutter Pop Comics has it. I know Floating World has it. You can look up Loading the Canon, one word, on Instagram, and there are a link to where you can purchase this if you'd like. These kind of magazines are a labor of love, but Colin takes this very seriously, and I think he came out with a very good product. I enjoyed this issue. I like the first issue. I think this issue got better. It's kind of figuring out what they're doing, and it's a little bit more polished, I would say. Not that the first one wasn't bad, but you know, you want to see like the second issue, like, oh, okay, I can see the improvements. So anyway, that's it. If you're interested in these kind of magazines, I would just try one out and see if you like it. Thanks.